Good morning and a warm welcome to everyone for first of its kind webinar series week 5 on fire safety security. We thank you for taking your personal time and for being here today with us. I am sure you will find this worthy. This will be a 90-minute session and I'm sure you all are excited and curious as well about this program. Please use the Q&A to put in your questions or queries. We have our group CEO, Mr. Hemant Kharse, who will lead this session. We feel extremely honored to introduce our star speaker, Mr. Amandeep Sharma, an experienced senior technical services professional currently working as a freelance consultant for a Kurukshetra-based NRI. Mr. Amandeep has worked with multinational hotels, brands, operators, which include Radisson Hotel Group, Taj Hotels, DLF Hotel Holding, JP Hotels, Whitbread PLC, Intercontinental Hotel Group IHG, and Carlson Rediser Hotel Group. His core competencies are MEP, FLS, and designing on brand hotels. He has been involved in almost 40 hotels in his career span so far. He has single-handedly spearheaded the conversion of all Formula One hotels to Holiday Inn Express hotels for Intercontinental Hotel Group. On his achievements, apart from getting accredited in various hotel conference panel discussions, he also won Design and Engineering Person of the Year at IHG in entire India, Middle East and Africa region. In total, Mr. Amandeep has won 4 awards out of a category of 5 for his valuable contribution to the design and engineering. Welcome, Mr. Amandeep Sharma. Let us begin the session by a small prayer.
Purutham Kalyanam Arogyam Dhanasampadah Shubham Purutham Kalyanam Arogyam Dhanasampadah Shatrubuddhi Vinashaya Deepajyotir Namostute Deepajyotir Namostute Shubham Purutham Kalyanam Arogyam Dhanasampadah Shubham Purutham Kalyanam Arogyam Dhanasampadah.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to week 5 Build Bharat webinar series that we have started 4 weeks before, and today is 5th week. Afrin, I'm audible. My audio is clear.
Yes, sir.
I think there is some issue, but that's fine. I can't help on that technical error. So I'm really excited to be with you every week, every Sunday, awakening your mind, so as mine. And the journey is really making really interesting, and with a lot of information that is coming in our mind, a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts coming into mind, how we can actually help each other and take this journey forward. I never thought that this series that we have started will actually take in a shape like this, very innovative way, and we can connect a lot of minds all together in this journey. So I really thank all like-minded people who have taken this time out on this family time on this Sunday and spending 1.5 hours with us every week. I'm sure it is our sincere effort that your investment of 1.5 hours, it is our attempt that we will make sure that it is worth it. So we will do all our efforts to make sure that we add value to your life in terms of fire safety security, which is going to enhance your your knowledge, which is going to enhance your capability in the organization that you're working with. And that's how it is going to be a meaningful event or meaningful experience or meaningful journey that we will have together there. I'm really glad to today we have a very senior learned person, Mr. Amandeep Sharma. Good morning, Mr. Sharma. Thank you so much for taking your precious time again and enlightening us. Today are going to be topic that is going to be a very interesting for everyone. So I look forward to hear from you, and so as the people around here, we will have a lot of insight from you as well. Yeah, um, I think last week that we spoke about in brief on the term that is called codes and standard. Usually, let me just recap what we discussed last week because there may be some new people who have joined in today only, which they have missed out last session. So I wanted to have them a brief understanding what we started and how we are going to continue the discussion today on this particular topic. Usually it is the practice or it is a mindset that we carry. Specifically, I'm talking about owner's perspective. Codes and standards is very limited because we consider that this is a part of somebody else's job, or typically a consultant is supposed to be appointed to work on codes and standard, and I don't need to look at this particular area, or I don't need to have an expertise on that. So that's when we shy away and it becomes untouched baby. So we decided that we will add value in terms of clearing the air. We got the Bureau of Indian Standard head also with us in last session, who actually gave us a very good meaningful insight on what is actually role of Bureau of Indian Standard in India specifically. In fact, we shared the link also in the chat. We can again share it today also in the chat option, where entire IS codes are actually available for us to free of cost to download and view and learn about it. Many people actually, I remember when we started a career, we used to have a physical book for IS code, and we used to buy it from a local office in Mumbai, where it was supposed to be a cell. Now today things have changed. Things have changed in a so way that all the information is available with us in a handy. It's just at a call away distance. It's just at a click away distance. So whole idea of this today's session is also going to enlighten you on how it is going to helpful for at every stages. Even if you are expanding your particular activity in your organization, it could be an expansion project or modification project or alteration project. And when it comes to fire safety security, how codes and standard can help you and make your function better is the answer that code and standards can give you. We also looked at the fundamentally the difference between codes and standard, because we are also not clear while using these terms frequently, are the terms same? So those terms are not actually same. The codes has a different role, purpose, and standard has a different purpose. So we looked at it. Code is actually technically is going to give you the answer of what is my requirement, what is my fire requirement, what is my safety requirement when it comes to this facility. So it typically answers you in terms of what is my requirement. And code is not something that is going to come by legally, statutory, unless until it is part of your regulation compliance. As a code individually, it's a pure voluntary guideline for you to adapt. So that's a that's the difference that we looked at. And what's the standard? Standard is typically is going to give you answer on how I'm able to do it. When I know that what is my requirement, typically a fire system requirement, then how I'm going to design that fire safety requirement is the standard answer. So these are the typically fundamentally difference between codes and standards. So we actually run the poll and we found out that more than half of the people were actually not clear about understanding the meaning of codes and standard. So that's what we looked at it. Uh, we also looked at little bit on brands standard and specification. And today is the day that we are going to spend on these two terms. And that's when we have got a specialist here, Mr. Amandeep, who's going to be with us uh, on this particular thing. Yeah. Uh, Let me just check whether Mr. Amandeep has logged in. If it is not, uh, maybe Afrin, you can just give him a call. Um, so that yeah, he is there, and I'm going to be unmuting him so that okay. So yes, Mr. Amandip is here. So he is going to be also talking little bit about on what is the brand standard. But before that, let me just run a poll here so that we can probably try and get it the clarity on brand standard. So I'm going to be here launching a poll on your screen. The question here is brand standard as a term in the organization when you use, what actually it means for? Is it meant for a compliance, or is it meant for an improvement, or is it bringing the consistency in the organization? So what's the primary
Hi,
role?
Hemant.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. Good
Am,
morning.
am I audible? Good
Yes,
morning.
yes,
Good morning, all. Am I audible?
yes, yes, you are audible. Thank you.
Yeah, because there is a technical glitch here because I'm at my native place, so net
Correct.
is not that great here. So
Correct.
you rightly mentioned the three things, which actually brand standard is a combination of all these three activities. The compliance is one part, which is very important because if
Let the poll get answered, and we will probably answer it little later on this particular topic. So I've launched this poll on the screen.
yeah,
Let people answer first, and then we probably can
sure,
answer it little later. Yeah. Thank you.
sure.
So yeah, so I think poll is probably I'm going to end the poll. Most of the people have actually answered, and here is the result. Only 43% people consider that it is for a consistency,
Okay.
and 21% people consider it as a compliance, and 36% people for the improvement. So you can see that it's a
How much
diverse.
is the compliance? How much is the compliance percentage?
21%. You can see the result. It's
41.
on the screen.
I'm not able to see that
Uh,
somehow.
okay, so can you see
Yeah,
it?
now I am. Yes, now I am able to see.
So
Okay.
that's a result that we have from the audience in terms of
Correct.
understanding what is a brand standard. Yeah. So I will give you some brief for next 10 minutes, and then maybe invite Mr. Amandeep to talk about this particular topic so that we can understand this technically better, the term. And all of us, we probably can see how this activity can bring in value to your organization, and how can you work towards this particular activity which will bring the change. So I will stop the this poll right now, so we know the answer. Uh, yeah. So let me just come to the recap part, what we discussed last time, and then I'll answer about brand code, what is the correct meaning of it, and then maybe Mr. Amandeep can do the deep dive. So when we fundamentally looked at it, the code, it's a set of rule book, essentially a set of rule book, which is give you a direction for your activity or the criteria that we have decided. So maybe if you say fire, so code, when you are referring a fire code, it essentially gives you a guideline, a rule book. What is the fire system that you can have for your facility? It could be school, hospital, hotel, offices, whatever, residential, whatever it is. So it is kind of a guidebook that you can follow, and we can work on that particular thing as a code. So when I say code, we also looked at what are the type of code that are available. So building code, essentially it's coming from National Building Code in India, or NAPA, which is an association, internationally recognized association, wherein they have a lot of building codes available, which they call as an international building code, which is applicable to the entire planet. So we can actually take that as a reference and find out what. So that's a first part that we looked at it. Standards. When we know that this is what my requirement, how I'm going to implement it. So when I know that sprinkler system is a requirement for my facility based on the code book, then how that system would be, what are the type of sprinkler, what's the design criteria, how the installation criteria will be there, what's my design spacing of the sprinklers, what's my water flow requirement. So all that consideration, deep dive will be answered in the standard. So every system, whether it's a security, fire, or safety, whatever, we have a lot of standards locally and internationally to refer and implement. Again, both are voluntarily. It's a guideline. It's not something mandatory. It's purely your enhancement that you need to have, and then see that how it can helpful. But the moment that particular code is part of your regulation, now, what is regulation? Regulation is coming from the statutory body, legally, statutorily, mandatorily. Wherein, if you don't implement that as a minimum requirement, probably there are chances that the water and electricity will get cut. There won't be any permissions or clearances that will be available for your building to operate. So, the regulation is something that is non-negotiable, that you cannot skip. You must have that inherent requirements to be fulfilled in your design. So that's what is regulation. But if regulation is going to refer your codes, that means that code also becomes your binding. Fourth element, dimensionally, we also looked at specification, which is going to be part of today's discussion, is something that is going to take references of various codes and standard and formulate your own requirement for that particular project. And that project could be a new hotel, new hospital, or an expansion to your existing building or a plant. So anything that you do, unless until you specify what you need in a specific formal way, that is called specification, then the chances that the building that you design may not have a right colors, flavors, or ingredient, because you're not specified that. So specification is a very, very meaningful word, and we will understand that in today's discussion about it. So what are the codes that we looked at it? Building code in locally we looked at NBC, internationally we looked at IBC. Model code is nothing but a kind of a Bible that will give you answer to that particular system. So it's a very, very specific or relevant to that particular product or systems, which is available in IS codes. For every systems, there are well written basic minimum codes. Basically the part of model code, which are similar to standards, are also available locally and internationally in the form of NFPA or various European as such territory. And then when it comes to the testing or any approvals, it is related to the product standard. So when you manufacture a specific product following certain model code or standard, who is going to authenticate that? So there has to be some body which is going to be locally or internationally recognized as a third party testing laboratory, which will accredit and approve that product, that this is listed for this application. Like for instance, when we manufacture a fire doors, which is rated for 1 hour rated, it is accredited by a local body or by international third party laboratory, then it is going to be authenticated for fire application for 1 hour rated. So then I'm able to use that particular 1 hour rated fire door in my building based on that product standard. So all three things are important when we looked at it, that this knowledge is helpful for your design stage, it is helpful for your installation stage or a construction stage, and mostly for a user perspective, it is going to give you a lot of answers in terms of maintenance stage. And if you ask me, as a user, your focus should be more on maintenance stage, where you can take help of codes and standard and build your team, enhance your capacity and capability both in a such a way that you still have a AMC guy on board, but then you know exactly how he's been working, what are the gaps, what are the holes, so that it ensures the complete functionality of the systems well. And that's how the role of codes and standard we discussed about it here. So I think elaborate, we discussed a lot of things. So before I get into this topic, brand standard, let me ask or pick up any question that we could not get last time, because we had very limited time last time. So may I ask you to raise your hand in case you have any specific questions till the point that we discussed so far. So you can raise the hand, and probably we can answer some of the questions that you may have till this point. Yes, Mr. Shiva.
Yeah. Uh, Hello. Is it audible?
Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. With the reference of these standards and all the parameters, whatever you're taking the for the designing stage and the installation and maintenance stage. So, as per the latest NBC 2016, okay, some standards are related to other than the NBC. Some codes are will be adopted for the new construction of the buildings. For the advanced building construction, how it will be taken the design consideration for your codes?
Can you just rephrase your question, because I think question is not clear to me. What I interpret should be correct. So can you just repeat again what exactly your question is?
Yeah, my question is for the right now the steel structures advanced building construction is going on in few areas apart from the RCC structures.
Correct.
Okay, the codes and standards related to NBC 2016 and related to some fire codes, how you have to adopt the system in design stage.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, you are saying that current NBC 2016, what we have as a building code for India,
Yeah.
cannot capture the current advanced structures or practices available in India as well. So
Yes.
how are you address those area, and how are you going to relate your current NBC standard, right? So that's a
Yes. Correct.
very good question. I mean, last time Mr. Pant, who is the head of India standard, was available with us. We looked at discussed this, what is the BIS rule. Now NBC, if you just pick up one,
Your voice is very low. Could
yeah,
you please loud or some distance is has to maintain? I think.
Afrin, am I clear and audible? I think probably if I'm
Let's say your voice and your the speaker location is a little bit far. That's why if you are the speak loud, it is not able to hear.
Afrin, am I audible clear?
Little bit. Okay.
Afrin, can you just check
Yes,
the mic? Is
yes,
my
sir.
audio clear?
Yes, it is audible.
Okay. So Mr.
Yeah.
Shinya, you can also check your
Yes.
network. Probably it may also give some trouble. So let me answer you in brief. NBC, for that matter, the last it was revised in 2005, and in 2016 it was revised again. So after a gap of almost 11 years. India specifically, if you look at it, and that to NBC, I'm sure it is not my opinion, it is even authorities' opinion and very clear view, because I'm also part of Bureau of Indian Standard Code Committee and we also meet every year. It is very clear that code doesn't fulfill your entire requirement as updated, because you can't update every now and then. The current practices that you are mentioning as a building code, building structure or construction practices, they'll keep on evolving. And specifically after Corona, I'm sure there will be a lot of dimensions in the building industry as well. But do you expect that the building codes will be updated as soon as your technology is updated? May not be. So that's what the brand standard comes in play. You have always an option available to choose what is relevant for you. At the same time, it is always more than what actually the building codes or standards talks about. As long as you are able to meet the requirement, that is a regulatory requirement, which is a mandatory requirement, and take a reference. And I'm sure you will find not only the structural requirement that are not answered in building code, there are many other requirements like building heights, building structures. You won't find exact clause by clause answer in every codes and standard. So that's what the performance based standard comes in play. So if I answer correctly, there are some technological advances that will happen, and it's a life. It's going to be ongoing activity. But you can't take the base that I will not be able to adapt the technology just because it is not there in the NBC. As
Okay.
long as you are able to comply the minimum regulations requirement and do more, it's all acceptable. It's all healthy sign.
One more point is here. After the advanced building construction and the implementation, everything is over. Then the awareness is the main important in this criteria for the advanced building construction.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's what we are all doing. What it's all creating awareness. I mean,
Yes.
everybody. We actually. I don't know whether you missed out my week one session
Yeah, yeah.
where
Actually, I missed the session,
you
previous session.
always go to Facebook and look at our week one session, and that's what we actually covered the first cycle of this series, where as an user, it is very important what, why, and how. Why I should have this knowledge, what is that knowledge that I should have, and how I'm going to get that knowledge. So unless until you create that awareness in your mind that I'm a user, you will not be able to do that. So we spend a lot of time on that building culture, how we are going to build a culture, and how you can create a team. And doing that, we might repeat in pieces this thing, but you are right about the biggest gap. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Hemant. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Mr. Ramesh.
Hello,
Come. Yeah.
am I audible?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, hi. So you rightly mentioned, I was going through the discussion and even the question which was asked. I just wanted to elaborate on that part a bit first before I get deep dive into the brand standards. Uh, the question was very relevant. It actually starts from the attitude. The owner or the chief engineer or the director or the property owner, once they start treating that as their employees start treating that building as their own house or own building, the things will drastically change. It's all in the attitude. There are standards, there are codes which one need to brush upon regular basis so that the maintenance guys can implement and take upkeep of those stuff on a regular basis. So, as you rightly mentioned, we are still lucky that we have brand standard in our country. As I have worked in some of the countries like Nepal or Bangladesh or even Sri Lanka, they don't even have any standards. So with each brand, I specifically talk about hotels because I am from hotel background. So each hotel industry, each hotel brand have their own set of brand standards. Those brand standards are actually not meant for one specific country or a region. They are global. So they don't only talk about or take stuff from NBC. They take stuff from European standards or American standards or UL and FM, all those put together, and then what is the best outfit in terms of quickness, agileness in doing the execution of stuff, and which will reduce the cost. Suppose, imagine if one of the owner is building a hotel and he is not a builder from background, which are cases in nowadays, and you give him NBC 2016 booklet and the BS codes and the local fire requirements, he'll be shocked to see that huge book. And they'll not go through each specification and stuff. Although they have consultants, but consultants, they wanted to, at times they wanted to hire consultants from their local part, which are not very much knowledgeable and all those stuff. There is a stuff where they, in that big scenario, the brand standards comes into a picture. It's a 2-3 pages booklet which will only talk about the gist. In a building construction, there are actually of 4 categories. One is on the architectural brand standard requirement. Second is on the interior brand standard requirement. Third is on the MEP brand standards. Fourth, which is very important, are on the fire life and safety brand standard requirements. So I'll just quickly run through on the architecture stuff. In architectural requirements, each brand, as you define, if you go into a Radisson hotel or to a Ramada hotel or to a IHG property or a Marriott hotel, you as soon as, or to a Broy hotel, as soon as you enter the property without the branding or the logos done, you came to know that yeah, I have entered a IHG property. So it is the look and feel of your stuff. How do you present yourself are a gist of all those 4 parameters which I have mentioned put together is a brand standard. In architectural brand standard, the area spacing is the factor which is covered. How much area is to be dedicated to which part, like to the kitchen or to the fire areas or to the security office or the staff areas or to the restaurants. In interior design brand standards, now suppose there's a brand, there's one brand which only talk about red. They wanted to have a boutique hotel which is kind of a flashy wherein stuff from Milan or from Italy, a fashion related product. Then there's a product by the name of Even Hotels, which is more of a nutritious kind of a friendly people who are more health conscious. So those things are tweaked into the design from color, look and feel perspective into the design. That is interior brand standards. Third is MEP brand standards, wherein how much fresh air requirement you require. For example, you require in one area, how much CFM, how much cooling you require in one area. In a gym, whether you want to give air conditioning or not, it's still a question of debate because people come there for sweating, but majority of the part in a hotel, it is air conditioned. That's a discussion which is going on these days. So how much fire requirement, how much services you wanted to give, where you give you PowerPoints, which is more convenient to the guest for users of their accessories. So there are MEP requirements, and then comes the fire life safety requirements, which we are talking more elaborately today in our discussion, is primarily a combination and gist of all the local authority codes and your international codes. Because in a hotel brand, they don't define brand standard, as I mentioned earlier, for one region. They do it globally. So the brand standard is done globally. At times, the problem which we face is the owner are very stringent. That in India, if you talk about for a building, you require 2 lakh liters of underground water storage tank. But they don't talk, our booklets don't talk about that you require total water requirement is for a 2 hours for fighting a fire for minimum 2 hours, wherein your 12 sprinklers will be used, your 2 hydrants will be used. The 2 lakh liters may or may not suffice that requirement depending upon your building height and your topographies and parameters. Whereas these are in an FPA requirements, which are gelled into the brands. And then it's primarily a gist of all these coder requirements which go to an owner, and then owner A has a very good idea that what product he's going to make, and he has a kind of a, he can get a cost analysis done on those requirements. So at times in India, the hotel, they start the building a hotel wherein they don't have a, you know, how much they wanted to spend on fire life safety. They only believe, majority of the people in hotel owners or the builders in India believe that they'll easily get a fire NOC from a fire officer, and whatever the fire provisions have been mentioned by in a provisional fire NOC which is required to build a building in India, they suffice that, they are good to go. But no, in a international hotel chain, or in an international scenario where where our products, we wanted to compete with our hotels in Singapore, or even with airports like, which are accredited airports in Changi Airport in Singapore, and hotels in Europe or even in Americas, we need to compete on fire life safety stuff with all those other countries, and all the, and those are not different, they are part of their own brand. See, a holiday in India or in Gurgaon or in Delhi is equivalent to a holiday in Frankfurt. So it's the same from fire life safety perspective. So the Frankfurt local requirements are different. In Europe, the local requirements are different. They have you know, choppers for firefighting. In our country, we don't have. So those things are gelled together, put together in a docket, and then handed over to a owner and to the consultant, so that they should not waste their time on unnecessary stuff, on reading other stuff. They just follow that and implement that, give a cost analysis to the owner, so that they have a clear picture, and we can compete with our standard and hotels with international stuff. And our hotel, our product will be at that level if we, you know, follow strictly on the brand guidelines.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Rakeshji. I think you really pointed out well what actually I was trying to talk about it in that particular minute, and probably we will have Mr. Amandeep also to share his experience on the same. So, in nutshell, basically, if you just talk about brand standard, it is going to give you a lot of answers. But let me just talk about it in specifically pure terms. Understanding brand standard, we have to go probably 2 steps behind. So I'll just quickly in 5 minutes brush up your fundamentals, so that the clarity on brand standard will come only when, not that basically the large corporates, multi facility corporates are following it. That's the reason it is my need also to follow, rather than following action and implementing brand standard as an activity for the newcomers. Understanding the fundamental why I am supposed to do that brand standard, how I'm going to do it, and that's what it needs an analysis. So let me just give you first fundamental. So keep it aside technically, all your uncover all your unlearn all your what you learn about brand standard. Just keep it aside this term for a minute. Let's understand business as a life. In fact, for me, 50% or more than 50% answers will questions will get answered the moment I start relating my business as my life. Talk about anything, whether it's a purpose, money, success, whatever term that we use actually in life are truly applicable in business. And the moment you have that oneness, then things becomes very, very normal and ease out. There is no work life as far as my life is concerned, because for me, work is life. So when you look at the business as a life, uncertainty is a very, very common, isn't it? We never know what will happen now, next half an hour, next 1 hour, tomorrow, next year. We live always in uncertainty. When I meant life, it's all business. There is a fear factor always, just because there is uncertainty. But if you look at it, if there is no uncertainty, if there is only certainty, then the life becomes monotonous. Or probably in layman terms, certainty is death and uncertainty is life. Isn't it? So first and foremost, let us accept that in our life or in our business, uncertainty will always be there. The moment your mind start accepting that uncertainty is going to be there with me all the time, then my behavior is going to be in response to the uncertainty that can happen to my life, to my business. Entire future is going to be in uncertainty. If I know that tomorrow I'm going to grow, then probably that growth has no meaning, isn't it? That success will not come when I know that certain is when my success is going to be certain. So as a business owner or managers or plant operators, whosoever you are on that side, like life, what we accept as uncertainty, we also have to accept that uncertainty can come in my business. And Corona is a classic example where we know that uncertainty can happen and will happen. It's by nature. Now, when you look at the other side of the coin, uncertainty leads to risk. Yeah. Because if had we known Corona, probably we would have prepared the vaccine 5 to 4 years back also, right? But just because we didn't know Corona is going to happen of that nature and it's going to collapse that way, people are still trying to struggle, right? So risk always comes from uncertainty. Again, fundamental rule that everyone should know. But not all risks are going to be, it's going to matter to me. Like simple example, if suppose we are now in a monsoon days in India, today whether it's going to be heavy rain or tomorrow is going to be heavy rain, probably there are chances that I may not matter. It doesn't matter to me whether it's going to rain heavily or not, right? But if that rain is going to disrupt my life, or it's going to be like my car which is going to be parked in my car parking area may get submerged if it is going to be overflowed, that is a risk that I may have to be aware about it. So all risks are uncertain, but not all the risk matters. That's again fundamental rule that we need to understand. But as a human being, we always worry for the risk that matters. And that's how the safety begins. That's how the thought process begins, only when it matters to you. The electric current is always passing through all the circuit that you see in the power that you already live in. So I'm not bothered. I don't feel unsecure when I see the power in and around me, right? But the moment that short circuit happens in that electrical circuit, which is going to be unplanned activity, which is going to be uncertain activity, that short circuit is going to be risk for me. So it is very, very important to understand this basic fundamental when we leave our organization. And this is very, very important for us to know the technical term that we are talking about. Now, when you know the risk, then people start looking at the various plan. We always use the term plan A or plan B or plan C. Typically, when any organization, when you are concentrated, your efforts are going to be on your 9 to 5 operations, that people are coming in, they are opening the machines, they are starting the productions, they are ending the operations and leaving the factory. If I'm just focused on that particular 9 to 5 operation as a businessman or as an employee, it's basically nothing but a plan A. This is what an expected outcome. There are very few organizations who will probably work on a plan B, which is going to take care of unplanned activities, uncertainties, or in technical terms, nightmares. My employees are coming in, but in case they are not able to operate the machines or anything goes wrong, then what is going to happen to my organization? So that's a plan B, which is going to be a standby plan. If plan A fails, my plan B. But today, specifically Corona has emerged, which is a need of the hour today, is that everybody, every organization need to have a plan C. Yeah. So that means it's a standby to the standby plan. If my plan B doesn't work, my plan C need to work. Like typically example, if there's a construction site and just because we are in monsoon days in India, it's going to heavily rain, we know for sure. My construction site is on, that means I'm on plan A. Just to protect the rain, I will have a tarpaulin to cover my construction site, so that's my plan B. But what happens if the wind is going to blow much? Apart from the rain, it will be a lot of windy, and it will be so much of windy that my tarpaulin will get removed. Then what is my plan C? Do I have a dewatering pump in case anything submerged happens? I need to take the water out, or anything for that matter. That is what is actually the plan B, plan C. And today, this particular pandemic has emerged to look at the plan C for every organization. Unless until we have this mindset, very clear mindset, what is my uncertainty, what is my risks, and what are my plans? Do I only limit only my plans to plan A and plan B, or do I have something extra? Then only you will be able to understand all the working that you may need to have working as such. So what we discussed essentially, the codes and standard is actually the implementation stage. When I know my uncertainty well, I define my uncertainty well, resulting to my risk, I start plotting my plan A and B and C. Codes and standard will give you a guideline to implement that plan. But imagine uncertainty with me will not be the same uncertainty for you when it comes to business, isn't it? Every organization will have a little common uncertainty, at the same time something special uncertainty as well. It could be process related, it could be resources related, it could be anything for that matter. Uncertainty always exists in different forms. So as risk, manufacturer organization will have a different risk, service organization will have a different risk, hospitality will have a different risk. Risk will be unique for every organization. And when I know my uncertainty and risk, I'm going to plot my plan A and B will be something unique to you. Now, when we are referring various codes and standard, do you think that it will solve my all answers, all my questions, taking the basis of codes and standard? May not be. So what Master Rakesh have exactly said in a few minutes before, it's a blend of all activities. Based on my analysis that I do for the organization, I'm going to take the help of codes. I'm going to take the help of standards. It may not be just limited to my regulations that are specified or asking about following the codes and standard. I will see that it is little more than that. At the same time, it is going to cover my all needs. It is going to cover my all risk. It is going to mitigate all my risk. I'm prepared for all uncertainties. And that's how the concept of brand standard comes in play. And when you know this concept well, then whether your organization is small, medium, or large, you will find the need for implementing that brand standard. Most of the organization fail to look at this as a mechanism, as a tool, just because it's a myth people carry that it is only solve the larger problems. It is only meant for bigger organization. It is only meant for a multinational organization. So not. This is what I wanted to give you a true picture of this brand standard. I think we have Mr. Amandeep with us, who is going to be hands-on person, and he is involved heavily in following brand standards, I would say. So I'm sure we can probably hear from him. So, Mr. Amandeep, can you unmute
Yeah,
yourself?
I'm audible now.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So it was not Rakesh actually earlier. It was me, Hemant. Just to
Okay,
correct you.
I didn't know. Yes, your voice similar to that, but your name came as Rakesh. So
Strange. It was me who was talking earlier. Anyways,
okay.
see, you rightly mentioned brand standard is the gist of all those stuff, which will not only cover your local, your state, or your country's requirement. It will cover the global fire life safety requirements, and apart from that, there are other requirements, as I mentioned, from architecture, interior, and MEP standpoint of view. Primarily, we talk about the life and fire life safety systems here and security stuff here. So brand standard is a code of conduct, I can say, or a process or a guideline within those parameters one needs to work if you wanted to build a certain property or a certain hotel. Each hotel brand have their own set of guidelines. So brand standard guidelines are actually part of the brand standards. So guideline can vary. It's a guiding tool which will advise your consultant, architects, interior designers, and even MEP and file consultant to design something. But brand standards is there are certain requirements which are sacrosanct, wherein we can't go beyond. We cannot change. It's like a Bible for a brand. For example, in a main LT panel room, you need to have a fire separation system. You need to have a tubing system, whereas which at times owners or your consultant they miss. And there are other systems also which they don't do the panel flooding, they do the entire room flooding, whereas the brand will always insist to do a panel flooding system. Same goes with the servers and same goes with the other stuff. And I have worked in different brands being a brand custodian to build certain hotels within certain guidelines and certain design parameters. So at times the challenges which we face is it comes from the owner side, wherein they don't have a true picture. They have done a hotel which is halfway. It's a brownfield property. The chalet is ready. They can't do much. They can't do more changes. They don't do more sleeve cuttings. And then comes the value engineering part, wherein you give them other tailor-made solutions which will suffice and fit in within your brand standards and suffice the existing structure of that particular building. So brand standard, it goes hand in hand. It's a myth when people call that it will, if you follow the brand standard your cost will increase. Never, it will never go up. They will rather guide you. For example, there's a hotel, I don't want to name that hotel, it's a Delhi based hotel. And around a year back it got a heavy fire in that hotel. The reason was of fire in that property was that property was only having 2 feet 600 staircases. There were two fire staircases, both were 600 and those were also logged. And in that crampy stuff, they have not done the occupancy calculations properly. They have not followed the booklet. And when now, if you would have followed the brand standard properly, he would done proper 1.8 meters or 2 meters of width of staircases. But he has tried to save his money, done that stuff. But now doing a retrofit and making that product suit to a brand, he has to spend more. And that may or may not look good because of the static stuff. If you do additional staircase, it may not look aesthetically nice, but still we have to accept that because everything, fire life safety supersedes everything. So that is one example of one of the hotels in Delhi. There was another hotel which we were doing in Agra. And Hemant, if you can just add on that, you were part of that property. We built 2 staircases in front of the porch area just to suffice the brand requirements, because the rear side staircases which were fire exit were not sufficing because of the banquet which was on the first floor. They have not done the proper occupancy calculations of that area. So I always insist and request owners and to the consultant that they must follow the brand standards, because brand standard is a gist of all those stuff which they have to follow on the BIS code or to the NBC or UL stuff and NFPAs. It's a gist of everything, and it is a tool which is available with most of the international hotel brands upfront, which they give to the owner so that they have a clear picture from day one what is required, how it is to be done, and how much cost is going to hamper to do that stuff, and what is the timeline to execute that stuff. And then the chief engineer of each brand are tuned from day one, their project managers are tuned from day one to meet those requirements. And then end of the day when the product comes, it is always 100% sacrosanct on brand requirements. And when I talk about brand requirement, it means it is 100% sacrosanct on fire life safeties, which will easily suffice the local fire officer's requirement. At times, the brand standard talk much more than the local fire requirements. I am just working as a consultant in a small town here in Kurukshetra, freelance kind of a stuff. In that building, although our NFPA says if you have a 15-meter building, you need to give a fire storage tanks and all. But the local fire officer doesn't want. He has given a statement that I will pass your building if you don't build a fire tank there. So it's a huge cost for owner. And the pumping station, putting together structure cost, he is going to save around 20 lakh rupees on a ballpark number, whereas owner is not willing. And I, as a consultant, advising him right that that's the thing which is required. So those things are covered in brand standard to convince the owners and to the consultants at day one. So that's the key part. At day one, they have upfront everything. There are no surprises because, to be truthful, you are dealing more with the fire officers. The kind of knowledge base and stuff, and kind of their own whims and fancies from where they come is different. You also have to take care of that part. If you take care of brand standard, their requirements are already embedded in between, and they will definitely going to be suffice their requirements also. So don't go by that. I'm not saying ignore them, you can't, because you need to get a codal or approval NOCs from them, but follow the brand standard diligently, properly from day one, and then chalk out your progress site construction part. You will definitely going to achieve. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I mean, I can see that the brand standard what you made is very very clear statement that people still consider that if I have a brand standard, it will add extra cost to my project, but it is not the fact.
Correct, correct.
Actually, there are chances that you might.
So just one more thing, which I sorry to interrupt you, which I wanted to add is that the brand standard was not designed or done by any non-technical people. All the brands, they have properly hired very top class, world class consultants who are from fire background, from architecture, from interior, and it's a separate, altogether a separate department whose entire work is to look on the technology, because they are, as one of the, I think Srinivas asked you a question, if the technology is evolving day by day, how the code requirements change. They, each hotel industry, they have their own separate department who specifically work on a brand requirements. I'll just give you an example in that. The Crown Plaza brand, which is IAG's brand, what they have done now in terms of interior brand requirements, they have tilted their bed at 15-degree angle, because they are saving some space at the rear and giving a kind of a cocoon effect, and they have copyrighted that. So no other brand can copy that. Similarly, on the fire life safety requirement, the world-class consultants are being hired, and they continuously look at the technology part and then embed that within the brand requirements, keeping the cost factor bear in mind, because we don't want to bombard our owners with additional burdens and all, because we know that, because we also want to sustain. So they work, they evolve that, and the corporate engineers like us and the corporate technical guys who are in each region, we meet them after every quarter and give our inputs, give our challenges. If because they are not the one who has to get those some things executed at site, we are the one who have to go those executed. So we face a lot of challenge from the owners and the contractors. We give them our viewpoint, and then we advise them what needs to be tweaked in and how it needs to be built into the brand standard. Yeah.
Absolutely. While I encourage people to have any questions or queries here, you can raise the hand. Let me again continue this topic on particular this thing. What we looked at that first fundamental myth that people carry, that it is only applicable to the top-notch industry, like a pyramid. We consider that top of the pyramid people actually are implementing that brand standard because they are very cautious about their brand. They are very fussy. They are very stringent about their regulations, and that's how they take an effort hiring consultants and get those brand standard. But then I think the current current need is not that we have to wait for me to be on the top of the pyramid, even if I'm on mid of the pyramid, or even lower level of the mid of the pyramid. Can I find an answer? Can I work on brand standard? That's a question. So I think here we need to probably see that it is not necessary that you have to hire only the consultants. Yes, it is good to have people on board to get right people, right resources to hire it. But then I think there is a sense of uh, responsibility also need to be taken, wherein a mid-sized company who is going to be having a dream to come to the top of the pyramid, brand standards can actually help them in implementing that. So I have one question. So Srinivas, you raised the hand again. So I'm just unmuting you. Is it your question, or you asked this question before?
I want to discuss uh, here. We are, till now we are discussing for the architecture, interior, and MVP and the facilities part. Okay. Other than this, I would like to add few more points for the standards like landscape design and the BMS system for the particular buildings. Because nowadays all the buildings are coming, advanced buildings are coming AA, artificial intelligence system. So the less manpower and operating with the more technology is adopting here.
Yes, that's
So
what.
I would like to add the these 2 points.
Yeah.
So any debate on this?
No, basically that's what the gist of the discussion here is that technology will evolve. The artificial intelligence will come in play, whether you like it or not. Internet on things will be a part of your organization. But how your organization is going to take the advantage of those technology and make the change in the organization is what is your decision.
Yes.
Yeah,
Actually, the futuristic buildings are coming with the less manpower, less man resource with the complete
yes,
technology adoption.
absolutely, absolutely. So that's what I said. What is the relevance of codes and standard? It is a means. It is just a means for you to get that objective fulfilled.
Yeah.
But
And
other
landscape
people, when they create a mindset, sorry to interrupt you, when they limit their working only up to the codes and standard, or take the help of codes and standard not to have it, then the problem exists. Then the problem starts. So
And one
code,
more is the nowadays the major challenging is also landscape design, either interior or exterior of the building for the huge campus or anything. That is also has to take part of the
absolutely.
consideration
There are
for
many
the
things. And brand standard, as Mr. Ramandeep have mentioned, it is not just uh, the entire organization takes shape into that in that format, right? But for our point of discussion today in this particular series, we are restricting to only this element called fire safety security, which is a critical component of the entire thing. So question is that whether you should have a brand standard for a landscaping, should have a landscape, should have a brand standard for interior. Yes, you may have. That's a layer. It all depends on the organization ability to enhance and make that consistency in the every layer. But today, what we are discussing here in this forum is how critical it is to have a brand standard for your fire safety security.
okay.
Yeah, whether it is part of that your brand standard or not. Maybe there are organizations where they may not matured enough to derive or draft the brand standard to the level of landscaping what you're mentioning about. But landscaping can wait probably, but fire safety cannot wait. Yeah.
Correct.
So it's all your priority, how your priorities are, and based on your business decisions, you can invest on it. But the point that we are trying to make here is that this is one of the great tool that any organization can actually use and leverage that to reform their organization in a big formats. And the question that we asked in the poll is the prime purpose. What is the prime purpose of the brand standard? It is not going to enhance your compliance. Compliance will come in a different form. Neither it is going to leverage any kind of an improvement. The prime purpose of the brand codes, brand standard is basically to have a consistency. Because once I write that plan, this is what is going to be my hospital or hotel or my building, whichever comes, whichever, wherever, whether it's a Lucknow city, whether this facility comes in, or whether it is in Delhi or whether it is in Nanded, my look and feel of that particular aspect will remain same, unchanged. That is what the consistency bring in by this brand standard.
And one more question here is the selection of the material interior design. That is also part of the, I think, selection process during the execution also will be take consideration for fire and safety.
Absolutely, absolutely. Everything
If
can
I
matter.
can, yeah, if I can just add on this, Hemant.
Yeah,
Yeah. So the question was very valid, as you rightly mentioned that for specifically asked specifically for interior stuff. So in interiors, when you do, there are upholsteries, there are carpets, there are wallpapers, there are fabrics, all those stuff. And when we do a hotel, we do a mock-up room first. And even before doing a mock-up room, there is a term which we use is the preparation of the material mood boards. The interior designer present those material mood boards with actual samples of those products installed on one piece of cardboard or stuff, wherein we can feel the look and feel of that product, and for which product I require FR rating, for which product I require FR rating, those are also defined. There are certain stuff for which I don't require FR rating. There are certain stuff for which I require FR rating. How much is the anti-skid value of the tiles if we are using those? How much is the FR rating? And if we require any oil resistant stuff, Scotch guard treatments and all those on stuff, those are everything is discussed much prior before we start execution of the mock-up and all those other stuffs.
Yes, yes, correct.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah, thank you, Srinivas, for asking. So, Mr. Reddy, we are not only discussing here the hotel properties here, just because we have expertise coming in from hospitality industry, so we are discussing. But the whole intent of this brand standard is to make it generalized. Right now, it exists only to couple of brands which are more primary dominant on hospital industry. That is getting talked about it. But the point that I mentioned here is that pyramid that I give an example is that any sizable organization, as long as they want to address this in a bigger way and bring the consistency in their fire safety security, that's a need of brand standard.
Yeah,
Correct,
Hemant,
correct.
I'm having a one query with Mr. Amandeep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amandeep, you have told about the all the material are being used in a, you can say, is a sample room or sample house you are making and check the all the interior as per the fire rating. But what about the plumbing and piping utility shaft? Because we follow all the standards, but what happen? Piping generally we use PVC and sealing for PVC as a fire retardant material. Nobody take care. Then the purpose is defeated. However, you are using brand standard or branding or an FPA, but such small things are like facade. Facade, you are using the glasses and all the things you are listed. But what about the sealing of facade? Similar to the fire barrier or smoke barrier gate sealing. Can you throw a light on this?
Yeah, sure, sure. Thanks for the question, Rakesh. I got your point. I only mentioned on the interior part because Mrs. Srinivas asked for the interior stuff only. Whereas it is not only about the pipes; it is about the cables also. We asked for ozone protection cables or XLP cables. All those are part of the specifications which the consultants define, because in each hotel brand standard is being given by the operator. I can say the either it's a hospital or a hotel. They give that to the consultants, and then when the consultant defines a tender document, those specifications are part of that tender document. And when those goes out, there's another question arises. Then when the material comes at site, then it becomes a responsibility of the project manager, because at a brand level we can't go into those nitty-gritties in each those stuff. We can advise them, guide them. Then it becomes responsible of the project manager to verify the material before taking those material into his stores at the site level. All those specifications, even for MEP, even the fire pumps, we ask for UL listed fire pumps, fire doors. For each fire door, we ask for a fire certification, and those certifications are being scanned and put on the servers and stuff. All those things are being taken care. In interiors, yes, because it's a material which guest has to look and feel. So the material mood board is only prepared for that part. But for the MEP part, your even for the GI size of the duct for the kitchen, you need to give 18 gauge duct, or for other stuff. All those things, material mood board is done at a site level, not at the corporate level. It's done at the site level.
Yeah, Mandeep, one question is it the what is the role and responsibility of a consultant or MEP to just guide and the project, and it is not his responsibility to, after completion of the project, what he has suggested and what the client or the project manager actually place in field to understand the gap analysis and submit a report to the building owner that these are the gaps or these are the deviation you have taken from my means apart from my guideline, so that it will be a safer part for MEP consultant in case of any untoward incident happen. Simply people are searching for civil engineer, electrical engineer, MEP consultant who has done this, architecture who has designed this, but they are unable to list out or such documentation parts, so that the person who is taking the deviation without their consent, it should be responsibility of the particular authority. Like you explained that fire officer told you that this much of tank is not required, but you have given, and there should be a deviation taken from but fire officer of local authority. So such documentation part, are you doing, or you just lies on the owner?
So
You,
yeah, I got your question. So there are two parts to it. I'll just answer the first part first and then go to the second part. In the first part, you mentioned that the deviation part, if some consultant has defined some specification, whether those are followed properly at site or not, it is his responsibility to raise a red flag and to jot down those points and put it on a white and gray piece of paper. Yes, for international hotel brands, yes, that is always part of the tenders or the purchase order which is issued to the consultant, that this is part of your scope of work. But to be very truthful, in India, none of the hotel owners call the consultants again back at site, because they think them that they are coming here as pinpointers, whereas they don't understand they are pinpointing the stuff today which you can rectify today at the first step. Eventually you need to rectify those down the line in 5 years time. So where there is a picture of a person like me who is at a corporate level, who advise the owner that you need to stringently follow that part, so that either you are following the design sacrosanct, but it is never followed. There are certain site constraints also. There are things which is not followed. So there are deviations. So those needs to be jotted down and handed over to the corporate team at the brand, so that they are well aware that are they deviating from the brand standard, yes or no. And if they are deviating, how much is the intent, how much is the percentage of the deviation. So to do that part, I can name two brands like Marriott and IHG. They have done an online range point checklist. Ahmed is also aware of that part because he was a part of one of the third party fire life consultants for us. And there's an online checklist. When you go to site, you need to fill that online there, and then it is on the international their server, and all those big brand standard core teams sitting out there, they view that, and if they accept those, that's fine. If they don't accept, they immediately raise their red flag.
yeah,
Second
one,
part,
yeah,
second
yeah,
part which
please.
you asked is that on the property which I was mentioning, we can't. None of the government officials give these statements or these stuff written. They can't give that. So he'll not give. He simply not give. He say that is my area, because they treat themselves as they treat themselves as the king of their own kingdoms. So
No,
that's an
so you
irony
can
of
you
the
can
industry. We
you
always
can
ask for that. We always
synchro
ask for that. But from getting a written, deviation from an authority is very difficult in our country.
no, you can synchronize during this project, and your brand and drawings, all the things are being at the designing stage. The fire officer should be part of this, so that nowadays all projects are coming in a such a way, architecture and all the things. A fire officer always remain in a loop, and whatever changes he need or whatever they can discussion and they can settle down on a table. It is
No,
happening.
Mr. I slightly differ from that, because in the way the hotels are being done, the for to get approval from authority, the first of all to do a building, you require a provisional fire NOC, for which the submission drawings need to be submitted at the first step by the hotel owner. So
Yeah.
once those drawings goes to the fire officer, they comment and give a provisional NOC where they have certain requirement. It's a set format which they issue to any hotel owner, that you need to comply those requirements. But when we talk about brand standards, they don't only talk about those 10 or 15 points which have been mentioned in the provisional NOC. They talk much more in depth on those parts, which obviously we don't want to give that knowledge or to stuff to that the fire officer, because it
Okay.
may or may not give in your go in your favor.
Okay.
I
Okay,
think
please continue.
great discussion. But I think just to one point that is coming into my mind, which is really my next point of discussion here, is that we need to differentiate between brand standard, what we are talking about, and a specification of the project. So I think I'm going to take little 5 minutes of our time in understanding the difference of what exactly it means and how role of and purpose of each document. Because in India, uh, brand standard, of course, is something that is very unique to specific organization only or limited to only certain segment of the organization. But specification is very, very common. So let me just take you through in next 5 minutes time in understanding what is this meaning of and how this is going to be derived and what is exactly as a owner, what is your role, because consultants are always there in most of the projects or some other project. But when they are on board, it is equally your responsibility to understand what the consultant role is all about. Brand standard, if you look at it, we already discussed the need of the brand standard, how it is going to help of any organization. Not necessarily that it has to be a multinational corporate, it has to be multi-located organization or a sizable organization. As long as you want to ensure there is a consistency in my this particular segment, whether it is today or tomorrow, the brand standard is going to be document that will be derived. But how it can be derived? Do I really need an overseas consultant to write the brand standard for me? So let's understand the process. The first process that probably is need is the risk assessment. The moment I understand that this is my property and this is what my risk profile is all about, and if there is a facility that we are talking about here which is going to replicate in more than one location, then it becomes more meaningful or relevant for a brand standard purpose. Because if suppose there is a one facility and will remain for long only as the same facility, then probably there are chances that the brand standard may not give you the correct answer, the specification might give you the answer. But brand standard is the one that will give you consistency in longer run, because I know the risk from the day one. I know my uncertainty, and these are what my unique propositions to my business. So the first step that is required for an organization to draft a brand standard is to take a deep dive internally or taking the help of expert in understanding the risk profile. Because unless until we spend enough time in understanding the risk, the the foundation is not going to be strong, and so as the building strength will not be strong. So the first prime step is important for any organization when they move towards brand standards, to understand the risk of the facility that we are talking about. And it's a very very extensive exercise. It is a very very scientific method to apply and come up with your risk matrix or risk profile. But it is an important element. Without doing risk assessment, if you just start working on other things, then that building will not be a sustainable building. So the first step is required is to understand what is my risk profile. And then second step is basically what is my benchmarking index, where I want to, like suppose we discussed about hotel, which is very common in terms of brand standard. Whether the hotel is in Delhi or whether it is a hotel in Mumbai, the the safety standard will remain same, the security standard will remain same based on my risk profile. And that is what the brand standard is. In fact, when they look at the brand standard for a global organization, they look at a global level. So benchmarking is another important element which is goes as a part two or a step two, where I need to define what is my requirement, what is my objective, where I will be able to define where I can go up to for my safety standard. And the third step is comes to set by boundaries. It's like a battery limit. If this is my property, whether it's a hospital A, these are my non-negotiable principles. I will protect this facility with ABC. I will have this protection mechanism ABC. I must have this. I will not have this. So these are my boundaries that I'm going to set based on my risk profile and benchmarking exercise, where I'm just creating a boundary so that within that play, any consultant we hire, he can play based on that. Codes and standards are going to be within that boundaries. Regulations are going to be in that boundary. Statutory conditions are within that boundary. CFO compliances will be part of that boundary. But I'm also defining what are the layers that I'm going to be doing more than what my requirements are, like what we discussed so far in the discussion, that even though my regulation is asking this level, I'm going beyond, because I know this is what my brand, I will not compromise on that. And actually, for a business perspective, it becomes my unique selling proposition. I'm standing rest from the rest of the crowd, something unique, where safety is also another USP that I can talk about it. And today, there are very, very few properties that are talking safety as their USP. What is the unique differentials? There are many. I'm really inspired when there are a lot of residential apartment. They always add this one, which is a good sign, which is a healthy sign that this apartment has got a state of art fire and safety and security systems. Why not? So when we decide that safety, what is something that I'm adding value to my customers? That my customer comes in as a hospital guest or as a hotel guest or as an office guest, how safety is going to be for him or her? What is my added advantage compared to the rest of the world is what I'm going to defining here in this step 3. And then the last comes is I'm developing that codes and brand standards, something unique for me, something that can long last, something that make my system sustainable. So there are various options, like Amandeep sir has mentioned that in a top pyramid, there are specific department, there are specialists who can be hired and they will do this job day in, day out. But then just because we don't have that resources, we are not able to afford that resources, should I restrict in making this brand standard? No, answer is no. You still can invest, because ultimately this is something that you are making it for your own self. Based on your retrospect, introspect, you are going to draft and make this kind of a plan, which is going to be your plan C, what I mentioned, and it is going to be implemented in every stage, whether it's a design, installations, or maintenance stage. Yeah, that's a point that I wanted to mention here. So brand standard is not something which is going to address your specification requirement. It is going to give me outer boundaries, battery limits, based on my purpose of the organization, based on my objectives of organizations, based on my risk profiling of the organization, and I'm going to be non-negotiables on those terms. I will not compromise on particular shaft if the shafts are unprotected. I must have a fire rated door there, and that's a no compromise statement. So then I don't have to worry. The consultant have to this thing, whether it is there the NOC, whether it is mentioned in the NOC or not, I don't bother, because it is coming from my purpose. It is coming from my document that I will protect my shaft. And that's how the culture gets started. That's how things get started. So this is basically a foundation of every organization. And I'm sure with this session that we are talking about, it is going to create a lot of awareness amongst all the users, and specifically large owners, where probably they may not have even clarity in terms of drafting their brand standard. Let's look at the project specification. That is something specific to specific activity. I might expand my existing plant, or I might add some of the floors in the building, or I might expand in a 2x way. So therein it comes as a specification document, and this is an add-on. Even if you have a brand standard that will not fulfill or the requirement of specification. Specification is an add-on document. It is having a purpose to go in minute way. So first, when you look at the specification, first and foremost, as a user, you have to see that it is relevant for that particular activity. You can't have a specification which could be for hotel, you can apply for hospital. You cannot have a specification for industrial plant building, which is going to be for a different manufacturing facility. So specification must be relevant, must be specific, must be addressing specific need of the project that we are talking about. Another point of discussion came in that consultants do not get involved in the last stage of it. That's how the gap comes in existing. In fact, in one of the sessions that I did cover, what is the role of a consultant, and here the specification document which will address that concern. When you make the specification itself in a very specific way, in an elaborate way, you are ensuring the responsibilities of every stakeholder. What is the contractor expected to do? What is the consultant is expected to do? But ironically, we give this activity as an outsourced activity and we don't add value as an user, and we blindly follow what I've been consultant has been given as specifications, and we even not even revisiting what is even stated in that specification. So as a user, you must give an utmost importance. We looked at the awareness also. We looked at some of the, one of the week session, I remember somebody asked me that, okay, in this industry, there are no professionals. But you can't make that statement in such a way where you are pinpointing others. When you don't find professionals in the industry, we are also equally responsible, because my specification doesn't call for professionals. I don't demand that professionalism in the document, so I don't get that professionals. As simple as that. When I look at that as an objective, that this is my requirement for this particular project, and I will not compromise on that particular requirement, eventually you will start getting professionals towards you. So user knowledge is very, very important. So any specification that comes in, make sure that it is from concept to commissioning. And last leg is very, very important. In fact, I always add SITC is no more relevant word: supply, installation, testing, commissioning. It is OTM, operate, train, and maintain. That also is to be addressed in the specification, so that when the system gets handed over, you know as a user how I should operate that, what are the training requirements for me to know about that system, and how I'm going to maintain that system. Third important element of specification is control on quality. So when we are looking at fire door, what is my product standard? What is my design which is going to be followed based on which standard, wherein I can optimize the quantity also, because standard is the one that will define my quantity. So what is my standard? Is it a mix? Is it a khichdi? Or is it something that you are defining very specific? So it has to be proper blend of all the codes and standard, where you are defining what exactly is relevant for you, what exactly that you need to implement for you. And in nutshell, when you draft a nice specification which is relevant, it is ensuring the reliability and performance both. Because you know that I have specified my fire doors which has to be UL listed, which has to be third party approval, which has to be endorsed by the third party listings. No compromise. I'm going to follow my NBC standard or my NAPA standard, or my specification is going to define my very, very clear directions, because it's a blend of all which is unique to that project requirement, which is above than my CFO stating NOC requirement. And I'm going to adhere that specification as a Bible for me, so that I get a right performance of the system. So this is very, very big advantage that you can get out of the right specification or a elaborate specification. And then comes in core standard inclusive. There is no project available on this planet wherein you can say clause by clause compliance can be met by one standard. No one standard can give you the answer. Codes and standard are a guideline for you to follow. You can always mix and match and come up with your own specification, which is going to be based on that, addressing all your risk and requirement, and then that becomes your Bible. We only take the advantage of codes and standard for disallowing something. For not to have something, we always look at the codes and standard. No, water tank is only talking about 1 lakh. Why should I have 1.5 lakh? Your demand is more important than the codes and standard. Codes and standard is just generalizing it. But you are little exception to that. So if the demand is going to be 1.5 liter water capacity, you have to gear up to 1.5 liter capacity. You can't just say that my code is only restricting to 1 lakh. I should just have 1 lakh. That's not a right specification. So specification is the one that answers you all these things. So I think we've discussed at length. Time is up, but just to wrap up this session, if in case any questions, I can pick up if time permits. But before I pick up some of the questions, I want to recap the question that I asked last session. And I don't know whether you have got any questions to these questions in today about these codes and standards. So first question that I gave an exercise is that, do I have my brand standard, or do I use project specification for fire safety security? So when it comes to your retrospect, this is a question that you need to ask yourself as an organizational member. Second question, do I have a capacity and capability to understand technical codes and standards during design and installations of fire and safety projects? Yeah. When it comes to you as a document drafted by somebody else, do I spend enough time in understanding going through it? Or I close my eyes and I trust on the consultant and that's about it? So what is my capacity and capability both in identifying what is relevant for me? Third question that I asked, is my organization ready to understand fully the standard requirement for maintenance? I gave an example of fire extinguishers. Do not just leave and feel happy that my refill of this extinguisher date is July 2021. I should sleep on that time. No, there are chances that it might have not, it might have already consumed, right? So what is my refilling requirement? What is my testing requirement? Is it the one that is relevant for me? So awareness starts with you. You don't expect that awareness in the society is not happening. Are you aware in yourself in the organization? Ask yourself. Then only you will find that even myself is not probably aware or taking pain in understanding codes and awareness. So how do you expect society to do and create an awareness, isn't it? So just to continue this week, I want to add on this question, which is very, very relevant to last week questions. How can I develop my organization brand standard for fire safety security? I'm picking up very specific this fire safety security domain. You can always go beyond. But this is a critical component, and this, since we are into this domain, it is important that we should work towards it. So ask yourself, how can I do that? How do I enhance my capacity and capability both to understand the codes and governance? Now we have a lot of tools, we have a lot of information available. Am I ready? Do I have my capacity? How do I build that capacity? And last question is, how can I train my operations team to understand fully the requirement specifically about the maintenance of my systems? I have an AMC, but doesn't mean that it's a responsibility over. The responsibility starts when you appoint an AMC guy. Because you are the one equally aware than the person who is actually coming and maintaining your system quarterly or monthly. What is he expected to do? Codes and standard can give the answer in a bigger way. So these are the questions that I'm leaving it to you for everyone. I think there are some questions. Let me just look at it. What are the questions that I can see it here? Mr. Deshmukh, is fire department is asking HRR while reviewing sprinkler or other fire protection system designed to ensure consultant has given proper design density or not. So I don't think so. Fire department is geared today, unfortunately, in getting into the design knowledge, barring specific cities. But usually for them, the truth is just an NBC. That's about it. Okay. So, but that doesn't stop you to not to work on it. You comply what has been specifically given. If your design requirements are not specified, which is probably 99% design requirements are not specified in fully terms in any of the NOC in India specifically, but that doesn't stop you not working on it. You still have to work internally. What data you need to give, that's purely a choice. Yeah, I hope I have answered this question. Srinivas, branding signages is also part of signages, statutory, informative, legal signages. Yes, everything. Because signage is also primarily requirement of the codes and compliances. And if you create your own standard that I should have this kind of a standard of signages, it will create a big impact in terms of culture creation. Because visuals are the one that are very, very important. And if you have that uniformity in your standards, then I think it'll because the moment you walk in, you know exactly this is a school. Whether the school is this or school is that, you see the same signages. Yeah. So yes, brand standard can incorporate the signages part also.
No, definitely for a hotel. Sorry to interrupt. So definitely for a hotel, the signages is one section of the brand standard. It's definitely there. It's where we need to put the no smoking signage, or where we need to, put the use stairs in case of fire. Even the heights and location and sizes are there. Fire evacuation plans needs to put in each case room, or even in the public areas. The locations are also identified in those in a pictorial manner in a brand standard. So signages is one part of a brand standard. Yes.
So any other questions? That time is up already, but in case I don't want to restrict the session here, just for keeping the, yeah. Anybody has any questions? I'm lowering the hand.
Yeah, Hemant, I am having one question regarding to your, I think, fourth, fifth slide about the standards. Suppose we procure a UL listed sprinkler head.
Yeah. Sorry, your voice is not clear. What is that? Mr. Rakesh, you're lost.
And the entire file system meeting to UL listed. But what about the entire system who is feeding the output to the sprinkler?
Yeah. So basically, when you mention about the sprinkler as a one product, the product standards is one. Secondly, is a specification of my systems. What is my design standard? And then how my design is going to meet that objective. So you have a lot of ways. Hydraulic calculation is another way that you can authenticate your design.
Yeah, suppose I have in a water space system state, but what about the because piping and all the things are not certified by UL, then how the system is going to certify as UL listed system?
Right now, as far as sprinkler system is concerned, there is no specific approval that you get along with the pipe. Like in fire alarm systems, you always get a complete approval as a system. A fire alarm panel is certified along with the detection and notification appliances. Likewise, sprinkler systems are not as a whole system is not been approved. What is been expected from a user is that the design conformity. And how can you confirm the design? In the form of hydraulic calculations, in the form of your performance of the sprinkler systems. What's a discharge curve? What's my capacity? What's my this thing? So these are all attributes where you can always confirm the design that it is fulfilling the requirement. But yes, I agree.
But what is the purpose to take fighting UL 16 getting only form UL 162, but equipment are ordinary? then how it is going to deliver the performance?
No, that's what I said. As far as foam is concerned, yes, that's a separate issue. You can have complete system as a complete system, but typically the major part, which is a pipe, which has been not as a UL listed, because today nobody is investing in getting those UL listed pipes, and it is not that affordable. So you need to have, there is a compromise in terms of some of the equipment like pipes.
Similar
But
thing in a sprinkler also. I have put listed in all parts.
yeah, parts, that's a check one. But check two, you can always do hydraulic calculations.
No, hydraulic calculation is different thing. My question is related to certify. Like I am saying, I have procured UL certify equipment.
There is no certification. There is no certification exists as an entire system that can be approved, including pipe fittings, walls.
Or I have procured, I am going to procure ULFM approved. I need all the system as a UL certification, but nobody is going to certify that system as a UL or FM.
Yeah, because reason is very simple. Answer is very simple. Neither the bodies are ready to take that as an approval, take that as a approved systems, nor OEMs are ready to offer that as a product, as a system. Yeah, so sprinkler foam is a classic example. Neither any third-party laboratory is ready or geared up to approve as a whole system, including all the ingredients like pipe.
Play game that people are playing ULFM product to certify. Yeah. If you are saying UL listed equipment I am using, it means the entire system should be certified by UL or some FM or
That's
other.
what they are not ready. They are not ready with approvals to approve as a system, because there has to be some laboratory, right? How will you create a laboratory which will certify as a whole system pipe fittings? It's not there. So let's accept the fact that we are not ready today.
True, Hemant. True.
But why the people are,
even if there is a
even though they
system,
can, if the entire people are looking for UL and FM.
So what best you can do is that you can pick up the equipment as a
Suppose
ULFM. Yeah, you can pick up the equipment as an ULFM and then confirm the design performance so that overall design matrix is performed. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir. Uh, so I think we will leave it the session here. Asking these questions, please make note of all these questions. We will come back on next week again Sunday at 11:30 with the same spirit, and I would like to hear from you what are the answers that you will get on all these questions that I've thrown about here. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for spending the weekend with us. I think this journey is going to be uh, very uh, useful for all of us, not for only for us, but even for all of you. So we'll keep seeing you every Sunday, 11:30. Link is available. Spread the message in the industry where you can encourage all the people to come forward and join this community that we have just talked about. Let's end the session by standing the national anthem. Okay.
Jana Gana
Thank you so much. See you next week, Sunday, 11:30. Thank you.
Thank you.